What's up, guys? My name is Pierce, and today I'm going to do a quick little rundown of the Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. Week one going down tomorrow, starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and it's a pretty straightforward card. I won't take up your guys' time, but I'll try to make these quick and concise. And we got the first matchup of the night. It's Kevin Borjas versus Victor Diaz. I mean, this is a pretty simple matchup here. It's striker versus grappler. We got Victor Diaz, who's the Titan FC champion. He trains at American Top Team down in Coconut Creek. And I mean, Victor Diaz's game is pretty straightforward. He's looking to get you down with the upper body lock, clinch takedowns. And he's really trying to work on his jiu-jitsu because he's got good jiu-jitsu. I mean, he trains with Adriano Moraes and a lot of the Brazilians down at ATT. And Diaz, I mean, he's a good fighter. He's fought some decent names in Titan FC. We got Washgar Cruz, and then he fought this Mongolian dude, Ibrimov, and he looked good in those fights, man. But I will say his striking doesn't really leave a lot to be desired. He's kind of slow and plodding on the feet, but when he does find his way on top, he works really well. He's not like over aggressive with chasing submissions. He's got a good process on the mat, and I feel like if he can get top control in this fight, he could be live for the submission. And that brings us to his opponent, Kevin Borjas, who he's a bit of a kind of like a question mark because he has been fighting in Peru. He trains with Jesus Pinedo. I don't know exactly what the gym's called. It's Pitbull Martial Arts Center. Yeah, that's where Jesus Pinedo trains at. I've seen him training with Enrique Barzola as well occasionally. So he's getting decent looks, man. And I mean, we've seen Jesus Pinedo do his thing in the PFL. Everyone's always questioning his grappling, and it turns out it's actually pretty decent. And he has good striking. And I feel like Jesus Pinedo and Borjas kind of have a similar style here. I like Borjas at striking. He's very dynamic on the feet. We've seen him get a bunch of knockouts. I think he got a flying knee in one of his fights. He's got decent head kicks as well. He's really fast. I like his hands. But I guess the one question mark, like I mentioned about Diaz, he's a good grappler. We haven't really seen Borjas' grappling tested in many of his fights. So it's hard to really gauge where he's going to be at in the grappling realm. I mean, we see his one loss to Renzo Mendez in Combate. He dropped Mendez in the first round and was looking good, and then second round starts, he gets clipped with a high kick and gets clubbed and subbed by Mendez. But I feel like a lot of him getting subbed there was a result of him getting rocked on the feet. But like I said, we don't really know where Borjas' grappling is, and he's training at probably one of the better gyms in Peru, probably the only good gym in Peru. So it's hard to really say where he's at, but because when you go to the odds, he's minus, I believe it's minus 325 for Diaz and plus 250 for Borjas. Looks like Borjas did take some money recently, but I might wait for a KO look because that's a lot of how his fights end is he finds a dynamic finish. I think if it stays on the feet, Borjas is going to piece him up. And obviously, if it gets to the ground, you got to favor Diaz. But like I said, the market's factoring in that Borjas is not a good grappler, and we just don't know that. So fight's either a Diaz sub or a Borjas KO. So maybe that sets up for an under. But yeah, I'm not really in the business of playing Victor Diaz at a heavy chalk because we just don't know what Borjas' grappling is at. And it's like Bubba Jenkins versus Jesus Pinedo the other night. Buying into the unknowns, maybe just take the dog for the pure value play. But yeah, for prediction's sake, I'm going to say Kevin Borjas by KO round one just because there's a great number on him. Probably will get a decent number on the KO as well. Look out for that. And the next fight, this is probably the fight I'm looking forward to the most. We got Payton Talbott versus Reyes Cortez. Got Reyes Cortez. He's training down at Fight Ready. He is the brother of Tracy Cortez. And we've seen him on the Contender Series before. He fought Christian Rodriguez back in 2021. And in that fight, he just seemed at a massive volume disadvantage. Rodriguez was able to stuff the takedowns. Reyes tried to get it to the ground a lot. He had good timing on the hips of Rodriguez, but Christian did a good job of getting back up to the feet if he was taken down or just sprawling on the takedowns. And he really put the pressure and volume on Reyes, and Reyes didn't really have an answer when he was on his back foot. And but we've seen Reyes, he's bounced back. He got a nice unanimous decision win against James Settle on Cage Warriors in 2022, but I feel like that was a product of James Settle kind of he'd get taken down and he'd just try to play jujitsu and he kind of was just stuck on his back a lot of the fight. And Reyes Cortez kind of just bullied him in that fight. And then his next recent fight against Elijah Smith in Fury FC, I believe Cortez was an underdog in that fight. It's a good performance. I mean, I wouldn't say he dominated, but it was a clean win for Reyes. Competitive striking match, and Reyes really kept he kept a good pace in that fight. I mean, he was landing good outside calf kicks. He was doing a good job on Elijah Smith, but I remember doing the tape on Smith. He's very green. He's not a bad fighter though for 2-0. So that's a good win for Reyes Cortez. He found the finish with the straight right in the third round. But he's a decent fighter. He'll come there to bang. He's not gonna back down from any fight. And I guess the story of this fight will be the game plan of Reyes Cortez, because if I'm Reyes Cortez, I'm probably looking for takedowns in this fight. But I will say he has good timing on his takedowns. I think he has some high school wrestling experience. He might have been a state champion if I'm correct. But Reyes, he has good timing on his takedowns. It's just I wish his jujitsu and top control was a little bit better, because I've seen opponents of his, like I mean, in the Christian Rodriguez fight, he would just turn his back and post up against the cage, and that was how he got up from a lot of the takedowns. And I think that's going to be the story of the fight, is whether how good Reyes's top control is, because when you look at Payton Talbott, he's 24 years old, I believe. Yeah, it's 24 or 25, but he's a young kid, man. And when you watch him fight, I don't know if it's just me, but I get the vibe that the kid's he's really raw, but I think he's got a lot of potential. He comes off as special to me with Talbot. He's got good pace. He's gonna be in a great fight if he is to win. He likes to put the pressure on you, work his hands. He's got really good pressure on the feet. He really puts a lot of volume on his opponents, and he breaks them down the stretch. I like his boxing offensively. Defensively, he is there to be hit. That's the main concern when you watch Talbot fight, is he's very hittable. And another thing, we've seen him taken down in a lot of his fights, but Payton does a good job of getting up. He will get taken down a bunch, but he doesn't really settle on bottom. He'll definitely work to get to his feet. I mean, that's the story of the fight, whether Cortez can find takedowns here and control Payton. But I don't know, man. I like Payton. If it's on the feet, I feel like he's going to put Reyes on the back foot. Both dudes are really hittable, but I guess Payton's probably leaves his chin out there a lot more. But if it does play out on the feet, it's hard not to favor Payton on the volume. And I think he can push a pace on Reyes Cortez. I'm not going to say Cortez has cardio issues, because I don't think he does. But the way Payton fights, it's he takes guys into the deep end and he's able to swim. So I feel like I'm going to go with Payton here. I like the skill set he brings to the table. Obviously, you got to work on the takedown defense, but at least he's not content with laying on his back. But yeah, we're going to go with Payton Talbot. I'll say round two, round three KO. Probably look for the late KO props. But Cortez is tough, so maybe it could be one of those where it's a drag him out war, but it goes to decision. When you mean you look at the odds, it's minus 150 for Talbot, and Reyes Cortez is plus 131. I did get Payton like a week and a half ago with the opener. I got 2 units on dog money, so line has since moved, but at minus 150, I think Payton's the side. At the end of the day, we can't really make him that big of a favorite just because he's takedown defense is not the best, but I feel like Payton's gonna put a pace on him, and he could be a good live bet maybe if Cortez gets some early takedowns. But yeah, I think Payton's the side here in this matchup. And at minus 150, I maybe wouldn't go 2 units deep, but I think it's a decent play for a unit at minus 150. And we'll go to the next fight. I think it's the heavyweights, Caio Machado versus Kevin Szaflarski. Yeah, this is a fight I don't really care about too much. It's two heavyweights, middle and heavyweights, fat, not that talented. I mean, we look at Caio Machado. He's been fighting in BFL. I believe he's their champion. That's like it's a promotion in Canada, not the highest level promotion, but he at least fights for the finish. I mean, he's very aggressive on the feet. It's hard to really take away, because a lot of the dudes he's fighting, he fought this Lee Main dude twice, and I believe that dude's in his 50s. He fought him twice, and he did what he was supposed to, get him out in the first round. And then I believe this Lopez dude as well was pretty old. So he's not fighting the best guys. He's fighting a lot of old journeymen in the heavyweight division. But Kyle, I mean, he swings for the fences. He's very sloppy on the feet. It's not like he's technical at all. Kind of just throws bombs, but it tends to work. And I mean, his grappling, we saw him get an armbar in back-to-back fights. I don't know where to rate this guy, man. He's fighting older heavyweights, so it's like, yeah, he gets finishes, he fights aggressively, but it's like I don't know where he's at. He doesn't really seem to have a process. He kind of just is very aggressive and finds the finishes on lesser men. But we go to Kevin Szaflarski. I mean, he's nothing special either. He's got a lot more experience. He seems like he has more of a process at heavyweight. I mean, he kind of is a jack of all trades, master of none. I mean, a lot of his fights end in the first round as well. But I have seen him, I forget, I think it was the Lima fight back in 2019. We did see him go to a decision. He got off on some takedowns, so I guess maybe Szaflarski can win by getting top control and takedowns. But it's like I don't really want much money in this fight because it's two heavyweights that probably aren't don't even belong in the UFC. But I guess the heavyweight roster is really thin, so they're looking to sign some guys. But we got the odds here. It's minus 127 Szaflarski and plus 107 Machado. Yeah, I don't really want much to do with that. I guess you got to favor Kevin just because he has more of a process and he maybe has top control upside. But I'll go with Kevin for a prediction's sake, but I'm not putting any money on it. It's a pretty shitty fight, and even for like an over unders, I guess since it's heavyweight, they might make it a 1.5. So maybe look to play the over. Like Machado swings for the fences, so he's always live for a finish, but not a strong take on this one at all. I'll see what the props are, but there's probably nothing that's going to stand out. It's probably a pass at the end of the day. And then we got the next fight. It's Tom Nolan versus Bogdan Grad. This is another great fight as well. I'm looking forward to this one. We got two guys here. I think Tom Nolan's probably going to be a lot bigger in this matchup, but I we got Bogdan Grad. I'll start with him first. I believe he fought at 145 recently for this Mendez fight. I'm not 100% sure, but Bogdan, I mean, he's a good fighter, man. I think he's got like 24, 25 total fights between pro and amateur, so he's got a lot of experience. And the kid's 20, I think he's 27, 28 years old. And he's a solid fighter, man. He's got good striking on the feet. He likes his kicks. I mean, we saw in one of his fights. I think it was this Dermenji fight. If y'all want to check that out on UFC Fight Pass, he got a spinning heel kick knockout. That was a nasty knockout. The good finishing sequence there. I mean, Bogdan, he's down the scrap, man. He's a good fighter when it comes to mixing up the martial arts. I mean, we've seen him in his early career. He hasn't really done it as much recently. He'll go for takedowns, go for the double leg takedown, and try to work his jiu-jitsu. But I wouldn't say his wrestling or anything's elite, but he's got it in the back pocket just in case he needs it. But on the feet, he's willing to stand and trade with guys. He's very hittable. That's probably my main concern with Bogdan. And he's kind of sloppy at times. Like we see him wing on a lot of shots. Like he'll throw like looping hooks and uppercuts and he misses a lot. But I guess that might be a product of him being kind of small for lightweight because he's not the biggest guy. He's like 5'9". I don't know what the reach is, but yeah, he might be at a reach and height. Well, he is at a height disadvantage. He's probably gonna be at a pretty decent reach disadvantage too. But Bogdan's willing to scrap, and I mean, I guess you have to factor that in when playing him. But I mean, I don't. I think he's a good fighter. Like he'll come to scrap, but I don't really see much longevity in his game. I don't think he's gonna be that good at the UFC level. That's just my opinion. And when we go to Tom Nolan, he's 5-0, fighting out of he fights in Eternal MMA. He's a good fighter, man. He's 24 years old, so he's gonna have a little bit younger here in this fight. But Tom Nolan also comes to scrap too. I mean, we've seen if you watch any of his fights, the dude comes to bang. He sets a hell of a pace on opponents, and he's really willing to swim in the deep end as well. He does a good job, good knees in the clinch. He just puts you on the back foot and really swarms you. And we saw that in a lot of his fights recently, where he's able to put the pressure on his opponents and they get knocked out because they can't match his pace. And I mean, we even seen a couple of his fights. Tom Nolan will go for a double leg as well. And sometimes, I guess I will say, defensively, he'll swing too recklessly to the point where he gets taken down. We look at this Adam Cook fight. There's a KO in the second round. Adam Cook's a good fighter. He fights at a city kickboxing, so that's probably the best win on his record. But Cook would find takedowns, found the back in instances because the way Nolan fights, he's very reckless and forces his opponents to shoot for takedowns, and he did a good job, I guess, defending the back takes. But yeah, maybe Nolan, if he's a little bit more technical, he can because he has a good sprawl. I've seen him defend takedowns before, and he does a good job using like his Darce choke or like a ninja choke to defend takedowns. So could be maybe interesting. What if Bogdan shoots in on a desperate takedown to because he's wilting to the pressure, and we see a submission for Tom Nolan because he doesn't have any on his record, but we're probably gonna get props for this, so maybe that'd be a sneaky prop. Tom Nolan by submission. But yeah, I honestly like Nolan in this matchup. He's gonna probably be at a five. I think he's at a 5-inch height advantage, and the reach advantage is probably gonna be decent. So you got Grad, who I think should be a featherweight, but we'll see how they face off at the weigh-ins, but keep an eye on that. But I'm gonna go with Tom Nolan, man. I like this kid. I think there's something about him that I feel like he is young. He's obviously can be a bit hittable on the feet, but I like the pace he sets, and I think the range is gonna be effective for him here. And I mean, we saw in Bogdan, I think it was two fights back. He was on his back for like 4 minutes of the round and hit a reversal. So maybe Nolan's able to find the double leg and get some top time on Bogdan Grad. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Nolan being the longer. more effective striker. And we see the odds, it's minus 132 for Nolan, plus 112 for Bogdan Grad. Pretty accurate. I think Nolan's honestly the side of those odds. I'm gonna wait and see because I see a lot of people online like Bogdan Grad. I mean, he's a fun fighter, but I think he's really hittable and that he doesn't really pump out a lot of volume. So I think he's gonna be at a massive volume disadvantage. And it's like if Nolan's putting him on the back foot, is Grad gonna be able to get a double leg takedown to bail him out? I don't know. I don't think so. I think Nolan's gonna push a pace on him. I'm gonna go Nolan by round two submission. Probably finds the KO, but if the submission's going to be a huge number, so maybe take a sprinkle on that. And then we'll go to the last fight. This is a very easy one to break down. We got Cesar Almeida versus Lucas Fernando. So we'll start with Almeida. He's 3-0, but he has a lot of kickboxing fights. I believe he's like 48 kickboxing wins, and he's fought for glory. He beat, this was 10 years ago, but he beat Alex Pereira. Lost, he was 1-2 against Pereira, but I guess that's the big draw for him is that he beat Alex Pereira in kickboxing, but it's 10 years ago. It doesn't really matter now. I think he's like 30, 34, 35. Yeah, he's 35 years old, 3-0. And I mean, he's in a lot of his MMA fights, he fought for Shudo in Brazil. And it's like the fights didn't really get extended. He got a lot of first round finishes. I guess he does a good job in the clinch. He's got good elbows in the clinch, good knees in the clinch, but it's like he's going to be at a massive height and reach disadvantage here. I don't know about the height, but he's at an 8-inch reach disadvantage in this matchup against Fernando, and he's at a 10-year age difference. So the intangibles don't really favor Almeida in this matchup. He's training in Vegas, I believe, right now. I saw him with Nicholas Mata. So I think he was doing some work at Fight Ready as well. So he's kind of been gym hopping, Cesar Almeida has. And I guess the story of the fight is how good is his grappling, but at the end of the day, Fernando doesn't really grapple heavy. I wish he did because that'd be a perfect fighter to fade Almeida against. But we haven't seen Almeida's grappling tested. We haven't seen him extended in fights, so it's like I don't know what his cardio is going to be at. But he is a good kickboxer, so he's always got the puncher's chance, and he's not a bad striker at all. He's got good low kicks as well. I watched his recent kickboxing fight. He's got good low kicks, works well in the clinch, but there's not enough tape on him in MMA to get a good read on him as a fighter. And then we'll go to Lucas Fernando. He's training with Pedro Hizo at I believe that's the gym ref at Pro Fighters. But both these guys actually trained under Pedro Hizo. Almeida does not anymore. So maybe if you guys know have connections with Hizo, maybe hit him up, ask him what he thinks about this matchup. But that might be insider trading. But he trains with Fernando right now. Fernando's like 25 years old, I believe, 25, 26. But he's a young kid. Been fighting in LFA Brazil, 6'3" middleweight. I mean, that's pretty good size. Oh, wait, he did fight at middleweight. Isn't this fight's at 205? So that'd be interesting. I believe it's at 205. No, it's at middleweight. Okay, so Almeida's coming down. I believe he used to fight at 205. I might be wrong. So let's not worry too much about that. But Lucas Fernando, he's a good striker. He early in his career, I mean, we see his loss against Diego Diaz. I don't think that's the worst loss. He got taken down. It's not going to be a problem in this fight because Almeida's not the one that hit takedowns. But yeah, Diego Diaz took him down, and Fernando didn't really have an answer. But we've really seen an evolution in Fernando's game. I mean, he is young. He was like 22 in that fight, so we've seen him make improvements. He's getting better. He's got a lot. He uses his range well on the feet. He's got a good 1-2, and he likes to clinch in a lot of his fights because sometimes when he gets pressured, he resorts to the clinch. But we saw in his last fight against Janzi Silva, that was for the LFA belt a couple months ago. He was able to hit the trip takedowns from the upper body lock, but that's like the only fight he's really shown any grappling offensively because a lot of the times he will have opponents maybe pull guard or he catches a kick and he doesn't really go into their guard, so he doesn't really want to engage in the grappling. But I feel like in this matchup, that should be what he wants to do. But yeah, I don't know. It just depends if Fernando wants to stick to the game plan and get takedowns because we don't know what Almeida is going to look like on his back. So if I'm Fernando, I'm going for the trip takedowns from the clinch. But in a lot of his fights, he looks to strike. So he might just stay at range with Almeida. But I mean, he does have an 8-inch reach advantage. So maybe he's able to pump some low kicks, hit the 1-2 from range. I mean, we saw him finish Janzi Silva. He hit a nice left hook to the body, got the finish there. That was a 5-round fight. So we saw his cardio didn't look half bad in that fight, but a lot of that was just him getting top time. So he didn't really have to work that hard in that fight. But I mean, he's kind of hittable, so maybe Almeida can find the knockout. I mean, that's the definition of a punch chance. And you look at the odds, it's plus 212 for Almeida, minus 247 for Fernando. That's accurate. I think Fernando's going to win. I think he has more upside in this fight, just solely on the fact we've seen him mix up the martial arts, and Almeida's 35 years old, man. I don't know if he's the one being brought in to win. Fernando's the LFA Brazil champion. good fighter. You can see him making improvements. So we're gonna go with Lucas Fernando. I want to say by KO, but I mean, I guess if Almeida is really a white belt in jiu-jitsu, maybe Fernando can pick up his first sub in a while. So we're gonna go with Lucas Fernando for the win. We'll just say ITD because I'm not sure what the method of victory is gonna be. But at the end of the day, Almeida KO, KO one. That's probably his path to victory. It's just hard to really say what Almeida's gonna look like if it gets extended. But yeah, that's it for this card. I will go over quick betting tips. I played Payton Talbott at it was plus 145. That's not even close to that now, but I played him for 2 units. I think at the current odds, I would probably make him like minus 175, minus 180 because he has a massive volume advantage. So I would play Talbot for a unit at this price. Borjas, I'm gonna wait for the KO number and also wait to see what Victor Diaz sub is. I have a feeling it's gonna be like minus 150, minus 175. So I don't know if I'm gonna play that. But yeah, Borjas money line, maybe KO. KO is probably the way to do it because if it's on the feet for extended periods of time, it's probably going to find the finish because Diaz's striking is very plodding and he's kind of hittable. So maybe Borjas can find the KO. Jesus Pinedo versus Bubba Jenkins. Everyone was doubting Pinedo. Look what he did to Bubba. And now Borjas is sharing the room with Pinedo. So Peru's been on fire lately, so maybe he gets it done. And Machado versus Szaflarski, maybe look for an over 1.5 if we can get a decent odds on that. But it's heavyweights, can end whenever. Probably not a good bet on that fight. Tom Nolan, I'm probably going to play his money line. I'm curious to see where the line goes because I see some love online for Bogdan Grad. I think Grad's a fun fighter, but I think he lacks a lot of stuff, a lot of skill. Well, not he's skilled, but I just don't think he's UFC level at this point. He's very well rounded. He's just very hittable, and I think he's going to be very undersized here. And Tom Nolan pushes the pace. I think maybe he has some top time upside as well. So I'm going to go Tom Nolan here. Maybe sprinkle the sub because he does look for that Darce choke in a lot of his fights. And the main event, Fernando versus Almeida. Price is accurate. I don't really know if there's a bet on this fight. Maybe under, but it's going to be chalk. Also, I will say Borjas versus Diaz to under. If it's 2.5, I would smash that just because they both have massive advantages in different realms. And yeah, Fernando Almeida, maybe look for an under. See what Fernando's sub is. I mean, he doesn't really look for submissions. But if it's like plus 500, plus 600, maybe put a small little quarter unit on that. But yeah, maybe see what Almeida KO1 is as well, because that's probably his path to victory. And I hope you guys got some useful information out of that. That is it for Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series Week 1. I will probably be doing the other Contender Series videos on Santino DeFranco's channel with Brandon Olivas. They're probably going to do that, so stay tuned next week. Cage Warriors legend and a man that I love to watch, George Hardwick. He's going to be fighting next week. Can't wait to watch that fight. All right, guys, take care. If you want to follow my bets, it's Big Bird UFC on Bet MMA Tips. I give them out for free. So if you want to stay up to date with my bets, shoot me a follow on that. Let's make some money tonight or tomorrow night. Let's go.